Everyone get their birthday face on because tonight, in honor of someone's birthday from a long time ago, we are reviewing a Carole Lombard movie. Obviously, it was her birthday on this day. And tonight's review is Made for Each Other. It came out in 1939, stars Carole Lombard, Jimmy Stewart, and Charles Coburn. So this film came out in 1939. What movie comes to your mind? What epic comes to your mind when you hear 1939? Hopefully you thought of Gone with the Wind. So this year was huge. It had Gone with the Wind, it had Wuthering Heights, it had Dark Victory. There were so many great movies that came out this year. Now, do you think of Made for Each Other when you think of 1939? Probably not. Now, this film isn't bad, but it just kind of got overshadowed, of course, by these great blockbusters. Jimmy Stewart was young. He was still building his career up. Carole Lombard, she had done a lot of comedies in the earlier 1930s. And David O. Selznick, he produced the film, and he really wanted to get Carole Lombard to break away from these comedic roles and try something dramatic out. And this movie was her shot at doing a dramatic role. She would die a few years later, sadly, but this one was one of her first. And one thing that Selznick was actually worried about with this film was that Carole Lombard would be too much of a lioness and too beautiful, and he was worried that the audience wouldn't find it believable that someone like Carole Lombard really was in love with kind of this puny twig of a guy, Jimmy Stewart. And I actually kind of had that problem with the movie. The whole time I was like, wow, Carole Lombard, she's so stunning and beautiful. And then Jimmy Stewart is just kind of this, I don't know. She was just so stunning that it's hard to see them together. And I don't know. It may have worked for you or other people, but it didn't work too much for me. So the plot of the movie is Jimmy Stewart, he's not struggling, but he's this lawyer, and he can't man up to his boss, who's a judge, and he's played by Charles Coburn. He can't man up to his boss and tell him, hey, look, I want a raise, I want to be partner with the law firm, and all these things. And Carole Lombard, she's the good wife at home. She's like pushing him, encouraging, come on, you have to go for this. And they're newlyweds. They met each other in one day and got married like in the same day. It's real bizarre. And they're living at home with Jimmy Stewart's mom. So this film is really a struggles of marriage film. It's a little bit like Selznick's The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit, which was my first movie review. The only big difference is that this one has a lot more comedy in it, and that one was really it was themed with post-war marriage struggles, and this one is just your common everyday marriage struggles. So that's what it's about. I'm not gonna talk a whole lot about the story because it wasn't I don't know. I really want you to see it for yourself. I don't like to give too much away. But this movie definitely had some funny moments. For example, note how Charles Coburn, he can't hear very well, so he always has to open his jacket with a hearing aid and he says, eh? So that was really funny. And Carole Lombard living at home with her mother-in-law, she struggles with losing her temper at the mother-in-law because, of course, she's always pestering at her. So she always says to herself, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. So that's really funny. And this is really what Carole Lombard shined at in the movie, not all the dramatic stuff. And actually, in the second half of the movie, it gets very dramatic. And I'm not saying it was bad, but in fact, I thought the only really memorable scene of the movie is towards the end, their child is very sick, and they have to get a special serum that is like in another state or something. And there's a blizzard going on, of course, and the only way to get the serum is to have some pilot fly over there and get it and bring it back. And my gosh, it shows this little pilot, this little plane flying in this blizzard. And I thought the special effects of this plane flying through a blizzard was just incredible, and it was scary. I kind of have a fear of flying, so I was just like, I had vertigo and was like, oh my gosh, how is he up there in this blizzard? It was really scary. So just note that blizzard scene. And actually, this whole ending sequence of their child needing this serum is based on a true story with Selznick, his brother, Myron. He was very near death because he had pneumonia. And the only way he could live is if they got a serum that was in another state. So they had to somehow rush to get this serum, and then they had to drive it to the hospital, and they barely saved Selznick's brother's life. So all of that is based on Selznick's personal experience with his brother. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm going to give this movie 2.5 stars. I do have a few things to read. I enjoyed it, but I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was just a straight up romance comedy film. I thought that was where the movie really shined. Like I said, I didn't think Jimmy Stewart and Carole Lombard were super believable as this super in love couple. I don't know, it just didn't work that well for me. But I have some things to read in Jimmy Stewart's biography. Let's see. So Lombard, when the movie came out, as I said, it didn't get very good reviews, and Lombard was really hurt by this because she really wanted to be seen as an actress that could play dramatic roles. And Lombard was devastated by this. Life magazine put the final nails in its coffin when later that year it proclaimed that the screwball comedy had ended the moment Lombard began sobbing seriously in the climactic hospital scene of Made for Each Other. So that must have really hurt Carole Lombard's feelings that Life magazine would say that, because she, this was her first dramatic role, and she probably believed that she did a great job. And also, Jimmy Stewart was really disappointed in the film's reception because, of course, he wasn't a huge star yet. He was kind of the side guy a lot of the time, and just now getting these starring roles in movies. And he was upset, and he even blamed the director, John Cromwell, a little bit, because he felt like he didn't direct the film very well. And specifically, there was a scene where Jimmy Stewart is supposed to cry, and he looked to Cromwell to direct him, to help him walk him through the scene and really get him to cry and get his emotions out and make the scene really a great scene. And I guess Cromwell just wasn't able to do it. So apparently, I guess Jimmy Stewart just didn't have a lot of respect for John Cromwell. Well, that's it. All I have for this review, guys. Happy birthday to Carole Lombard. God bless her. She's up there. And I know she's up there with Clark Gable because they were made for each other. Have a good night, guys.